Ngā mihi mahana a kia koutou. No mai haere mai. Kim's going to open our meeting with karakia. Thank you.
Karakia tātou, tuea ki runga, tuea ki raro, tuea ki roto, tuea ki waho, tuea tātou, ti tangata, ki te kaupapa o tēnei, o te huinei, ki te kaupapa o te ranginei, mōri ora, ki ora tātou katoa.
Ora. Good, thank you. Housekeeping. Some people on Zoom now. Only staff members on Zoom. Is that correct? Oh yeah, I just can't quite see everybody out there. Thank you. If you're on Zoom, just make sure you keep your mics off. Thank you. And to let everybody know, the meeting's been recorded and will be available on Council's YouTube channel. Toilets and fire exits out here, toilets out the door to the left. Media are present. They may be filming part or all of the meeting. And hearing assistance hardware is available in the public seating area on the left there. And a note that a strategy workshop commences at 12 today following the meeting for 3 councillors, Butler, Ellison, Maru. So we're imagining we'll be finished before they need to leave. However, if we're not, we'll carry on. We have apologies for lateness from board member Grant Knowles and Deputy Mayor Bryant. Somebody's happy to move. Councillor Walker, thank you. Councillor Malu second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Oh, my apology. There's an apology from Councillor Green as well. So someone's happy to put that. Councillor Walker. Councillor Dallas second. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. We have one speaker public forum. Timo, come forward. Welcome. You have 5 minutes. I think you know how this goes. I'll let you know at 4.5 if you're still going. Just okay.
Well, good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Timo Neubauer. I'm an urban designer, small business owner, and a very small farmer in the Hope area. I conducted some early engagement for you guys on the some aspects of the draft Plan Change 81, those aspects that affect Hope, the rezoning of rural land into light industrial and mixed business between Hope and Richmond. We held a community meeting late February, to which Jeremy Butler and Councillor Greening attended. We had probably about 150 people at that meeting. That was enormous. We didn't expect that. And I came away from that meeting feeling that the community seemed really concerned about the council's plan. So I set out to clarify the community's position by launching a petition. And the petition is asking you to remove the rezoning from Plan Change 81 before it's released for consultation. Because it destroys the rural identity of our village, Hope, it results in even further loss of highly productive land that we'll never get back. It disincentivizes business land intensification. It adversely affects property values. It promotes further car use while walking and cycling becomes less attractive in our neighbourhood. And it opens the floodgates for yet more greenfield development in Hope. This petition gained around 400 signatures in less than 1 week. Yes, there might have been a few overlaps, and maybe one of the online signatories was from Honolulu, but I wouldn't get too hung up on the numbers. Because what I found walking the streets of Hope, talking to people, is that everybody agreed. Now, before you argue that we need this rezoning for business growth and employment, have a look at your own reports. On its current trajectory, TBC provides 10 times more industrial and business land than there is demand for. So what's the rush? We need to move on from this outdated two-dimensional planning approach where there's employment here, residential here, and then you travel in between. We need a more subtle placemaking approach that values and builds on the qualities of our towns and villages rather than diminishing these. And we need to provide for employment options that are supportive of these qualities. Hope has the potential to be a lovely farming village, but not if NZTA continues to treat Hope as if it didn't exist, or if this Plan Change 81 goes through as it's planned at the moment. Your community is dead against this rezoning. Mayor King, if he's listening, councillors, especially Deputy Mayor Bryant and Councillor Mailing, this is what I was talking about when I warned the community about your plans for our productive land between Hope and Richmond, which you called unsubstantiated, misinformation, and from the land of fairies. With all due respect, what were you thinking? Did you think the problem would go away if you publicly called me a liar or stuck your head in the sand and denied reality? The public is losing trust in you, the council, as an institution. It's losing trust in you if you deny the truth. And it's losing trust in you if your officers accidentally send emails that reveal that they see the community meeting as an ambush and don't really want to turn up. It's losing trust in you if your officers deny the display of our petition at our library, the most basic democratic right. And it's wondering who this council is representing and if our officers compare the council's operation to that of a business whose interests are conflicted by those of its own residents. Or if you try to delay this presentation of our petition until after your consultation on Plan Change 81 has already started. Some people might get the impression that you're working against your residents rather than for them. Now, this is your chance to show that you care. I urge you, show some leadership and strike this rezoning of Plan Change 81 before consultation starts.
Thank you. I think you've been advised that this committee will pass on the petition to the appropriate committee to assist with timeliness. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Are there any declarations of interest? Nil late items. We're going to confirm some minutes. Minutes of the Environment and Regulatory Committee meeting held on Thursday, 21 November last year, be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Is someone happy to move?
Happy to move.
Thank you. Councillor Maru, second Councillor Dakey. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Our first report, Resource Management, Charlotte and Barry. Welcome to our new year.
Kia ora tātou. Ko Charlotte Shunda tōku ingoa. We're here to present today on the submission that Tasman made on the Resource Management Consenting and Other System Changes Amendment Bill. The first reading of that was in December, so over January staff worked on the bill, and we made a submission on the 10th of February. The Mayor, supported by Barry and myself, made an oral submission to the Environment Select Committee on the 20th of February, and so staff are now seeking retrospective approval by Council. May I take the report as read? just a couple of highlights from that report. The key part of it is that there were some major changes or some changes to the consenting and compliance, which have improved aspects of the Resource Management Act. So we supported those, as did the sector groups that we leveraged off the submissions of Te Ura Kahika and Tai Taura. So we agreed in principle with most of the positions taken by those sector groups. We had some concerns that we highlighted and raised, and those are outlined in the report, particularly the issues around the new and heightened ministerial intervention powers, the removal of the applicant or submitter's ability to request a hearing, and the use of the freshwater planning process, and we asked whether there was options to opt out of that process when it's not related to the NPSFM, and the use of the streamlined planning process, especially to support areas where there's urban growth identified in the current future development strategy. The only place that we differed from the sector groups, Te Ura Kahika, was in around fishing's, the rules controlling fishing. In making our submission, we drew expertise from right across council, staff, environmental policy, environmental science, consents and compliance team. The draft submission was sent to you, and thank you very much for those councillors who provided feedback to help strengthen our submission. Just another note, I guess, the Mayor receives some informal feedback from the Minister that the quality of Tasman's submissions is high and is appreciated. So that's a nice commendation. I guess the next steps is that the Select Committee will report back to Parliament on the 17th of June. Yeah, that's in conclusion. I guess anything to add, Barry?
No, nothing.
Yeah. So, yeah, any questions?
Thank you very much. And good to hear that there's some feedback about the quality of the submission. I mean, I just think what a lot of work to be doing over Christmas time, really, through that period. And, I feel good to be a part of a council that produces submissions to that standard that are genuinely contributing to making the legislation workable and better. So I thought it was a very good submission. Councillor Butler, then Councillor Kinnemont. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you for your submission. For the submission that you wrote, I thought it was extremely well thought through and very comprehensive. So it's very important that council, actually local government, submits for these legislative changes. I actually had raised the issue about fishing, and I just, I think we sometimes fall into this trap that we think that aquaculture is fisheries, and in actual fact, while there is a statement here saying that we don't want to control fishing, we do actually have consents for issue consents for all the aquaculture farms, and also for the Wainui Spat area, which now has its consent extended to for another 20 years. And also we do have our aquaculture management area, which is a special thing. So just having said that, I'm happy to move that this be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you, through the chair. I'd like to echo Councillor Butler's comments on the work you've done, Charlotte, and just looking at the quality of it, it's really outstanding. I'd like to just tease out with you a little bit about the ability for having hearings removed. that seems a very draconian backward step, because the next level of being heard is in the Environment Court. Would that be correct?
Yes, it is. And it was from listening to some of the other submissions at Select Committee, it was pretty much across the board. Local government and also industry had a very similar position, that actually hearing's a really valuable part of the process. So I think that was a very clear message that Select Committee got in relation to that part of the bill.
Thank you. I've seconded that too.
Thank you. Anything further? Not a lot of comment on a really comprehensive bit of work, but it's reflective, I think, obviously, of the quality and that you're. I think the integrity that we're taking to these processes is very good. So thank you very much, and to all the staff across the organisation that have contributed to this piece of work. Thank you. Water Services Bill submission, Michael. Oh, resolution. There's two parts of the resolution that we received: the Resource Management Amendment Bill report, and we retrospectively approved the council's submission. And we had a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And through the Chair, this is to, again, retrospectively approve a submission that was made on the 21st of February to the third bill in a series of three bills that our government has put up recently. Quite a large bill, as it sets in enduring rules and responsibilities for water suppliers and water providers moving forward. So it does replicate a lot of what's in the LGA. There's quite a few bits that we didn't submit on, as we also supported a couple of other organisations' submissions on this. And so, yeah, this is to retrospectively approve this. So I'll take any questions, but I'll take the report as read.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much, through the Chair. Thank you very much for the report. Just a question. I might have the wrong end of the stick here, but in the paper under general comments, it talks about, you know, we've got all this work going on at the moment in terms of local water done well, and we're going to have to consult with the public about that. And then we go on to say that our consultation associated with this bill needs to be delayed until after September 2025. What does that mean exactly? Our consultation associated with this central government bill?
Yeah, through the Chair, great question. This basically what this the way this bill's been written is quite clumsy. It's supposed to be setting up the enduring rules moving forward on consultation, but it's been not clear that the consultation that we're going to ask to go into shortly, April, May, for preferred option, doesn't need to be repeated again. It's not the intent of the bill, we understand, but that's just the way it's written. So, yeah.
Okay, so just to be clear, it's not that we're left with the clear kind of view that we will have to do another round of consultation. We're wanting to tighten up the wording so that it's clear that we don't.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Would you be inclined to move it all?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commentary or questions? Councillor Dowler, are you going to second? Nothing further. Again, thank you for the work that's gone into here. I'm surprised to see that we needed to make some adjustment to whether water inside a pipe in a cistern is defined as water or not. That's odd to me. Anyway, I do hope that the effort that goes into these submissions, that there's a genuine process on the other end around making adjustments and improving. So there's nothing worse than a whole lot of effort going in and to no effect, really.
We hope so too. We hope so too.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a relentless sort of process of all these submissions. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. And Kim, our Group Manager, your report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just by way of introducing my report, councillors will appreciate that it's some 4 months since we last met as a committee, and that over that intervening period, we've had the summer break and a good chance for staff to unwind after quite a busy year. But as we've picked up this morning with the retrospective submissions, there were a number of staff that were involved in continuing their activities over that break. And so my report touches on the work that's been done, not only in terms of preparing the submissions, but also acknowledging the work of the regulatory staff that have continued to make sure that the regulatory framework has been given effect over that period. There's a particular mention of the Harbour Master, and there's a few little pictures that were little background shots of some of the things that excited the Harbour Master during that period. But also we've had our core regulatory staff either working or on standby. And we've also had our river monitoring staff very actively making sure that we're at all times understood the amount of water that was in our rivers and in our groundwater systems, because we're also obliged to maintain the dry weather task force through that period, and a number of decisions needed to be taken and put into effect around that. Thankfully, most of that period didn't present itself as drought-type symptoms. We have been officially placed in the top of the South Drought at the moment, but it's not really something that's affecting a large part of our district. It's a few little pockets, and our Marlborough colleagues are caught by that. So that's just a sort of a tip of the hat to the work that was done through that period. These few little pictures just show some of the things, as I say, that occupied the Harbour Master through that time. And it's also noting in the report that the government was very busy in the lead up to the break, either announcing or progressing a range of reforms. And as I've mentioned, you've heard from a couple of those teams that were busily pulling together the threads to put a coherent position on behalf of the council together in very condensed timeframes. My report also talks about that while we submitted to some, we also relied on the efforts of our sector groups of Turu Kahika and Tatura for some areas such as the government's ideas around the regulatory standards bill that is being sort of conjured up and promoted within the coalition agreement. And I've also made note there that one of the things that did move through was a Department of Conservation reform proposals that's being sort of in advance of anything formally announced by Cabinet. The department is looking at reforming the way it looks at managing its conservation assets. And it was particularly of interest to us, given the status and the role of the Apple Tasman Foreshore Scenic Reserve and the way that the joint management between the department and ourselves work on that. So we did a piece of work, and I've signed that off as group manager rather than bringing it back to here, because it's not so much a proper government process at this point. It's a series of ideas, but happy to make that submission available to any councillors who are interested in what we put forward there, which was really a reminder to our department colleagues that we are in this game in a partnership, and the desire that partnerships really have discussions before having such things put into the public arena. So our message there is that we would like to sit down with officials and step through what this really means for us and the way that we manage that our duties along the Able Tasman. I've also got a quick note there of some of the court actions that we've got underway and where they're progressing. But I am also pleased to advise, as an addition to my report, that the long-standing dispute over pool fencing, which was due to be heard in the Supreme Court in March, has now been discontinued by the applicants. This leaves the established law in this area, as set out in the Court of Appeal decision, which found in Council's favour, firmly in place. The outcome is favourable to Council, and I'm sure it will be warmly received by the VCAs from across the country, because it gives a good sort of status from which to understand Council's obligations from. This particular one was a long-running dispute that's been in the public arena, and I'd like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the staff, time and efforts of Council's legal advisors in bringing this case together. And I understand a detailed update will be provided to the Audit and Risk Committee at a later time. But just like to conclude my summary of the report by acknowledging that that's quite a significant development for us. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Kim. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, through you, Chair. My first question is, when people, slightly off report, but I'll come back to the report. When people put a request in to speak at our public forum, how has that process worked? So I understand we had a request to speak at public forum. The people haven't heard back from us. I'm not too sure why they haven't heard back. Has there been a change in how we request to speak at public forum? Are they denied? And are they told why?
Through the chair, if that's circling around to connecting to the group manager's report, I'm no knowledge of any change of process or procedures or people who haven't heard from us.
Okay, because it feels a little bit awkward when we have a chair talking about integrity, and then we have the regulatory, I mean, obviously through this regulatory arm, we have, you know, some regulatory requirements. I'm just wondering, why is it when people put a request in, they hear nothing? And so it's one thing. My second thing is, thank you for updating us on the pool fencing and the process that's been through, and I appreciate it's going to ARC. Could you please inform whether the costs associated from our side of that will also be provided at the ARC meeting, please?
Through the chair, the answer to that is yes.
It might be that it's, I don't know if you've approached within staff around, you can approach me about the public forum matter, but perhaps you've approached staff to find out whether where that request got lost or what happened. So probably better to follow that line. And I don't know if it's so much a matter of integrity of this committee. It's a process of administration, I imagine. So somebody will follow that up with you if you're happy to speak with Roe around who that was and when and things like that. Thank you. Anything further? Councillor Mayling, and then Councillor Butler and Councillor McKenzie.
Well, first of all, thank you for your report. It was very comprehensive. And my question is one I've asked you before, but I think I should ask it again in relation to national direction from this government, which will affect us. And there has been slippage, and I just wondered if through your contacts, have you got any update on when we should expect these national directions?
Through the chair, I think I make slight reference to this. The expectation of the government was that it would be rolled at the national direction, and the big wave of changes would be rolled out in the first half of the year. It's still very much on the officials' radar, so it's still active. But they advise that ministers are just trying to spend a little bit more time to making sure that the national direction that they're talking to is the national direction that will connect up to phase 3 of the reforms, which is the latter part of the year. And they're taking advice at the moment from an expert advisory group, which is framing the phase 3 reforms. So in relation to the national direction, that's still on the agenda. It's still proposed to be happening this year, but it's the second half of the year where it's more likely to basically be released for consultation.
Thank you for that. It just affects our programs going forward.
Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Yeah, I just, in relation to, I suppose, the same theme, reform of local government, in 3.15, you've described some points about what the government, how the government is wanting to refocus local government on basics and removing the four well-beings, restoring a purpose focus on fixing pipes, potholes and core local services and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering, being a unitary council, I'm wondering if where do we sit in our regional function, in our in terms of local government reform. I mean, because here there's, you know, and I understand that there is this move to get local government to stick to the basics. Does this impact on our regional function at all, you know, in terms of the environment and protecting the environment, or do we just not know that? But I'm not aware that there's been any kind of statement or anything in that regard from government about regional councils and therefore unitary councils. If there's nothing known, then that's fine. I'm just wondering if you've kind of heard anything through the grapevine.
Through the chair on that one, I guess a lot of our regional function is caught up in the phase 3 of the reform. So while this is about local government as an entity, the work that local government is asked to do, you know, comes out of other statutes, most particularly for us, the Resource Management Act, the Building Act, the Maritime Transport Act, those sorts of things where there's other agencies driving the policy framework that is then delivered on. And certainly through the conversations that I've been able to access, there's no intention to take away the functions of basically the regional arm of local government in terms of the design, you know, aspects of what it is that gets looked at. But there's constant scrutiny going on the extent to which that will be nationally directed versus locally determined. And also the way that this all gets given effect in terms of a compliance and enforcement space. There's thinking going on around how that might look at some point in the future. But for the foreseeable, as we know, when the previous government looked to replace the RMA with another with 2 different acts and with a third one up their sleeve, the transition for that was projected by that government to be 10 years. So there's whatever system we're looking at, there's a transition period, which means that for the foreseeable future, those sorts of things that you've talked about remain with us as a unitary council. And there's even sort of potential that the government may be seeing that unitary model as more of the one to be applied across the realm, you know, when it talks to local government. So I don't see any short-term or even medium-term change to those functions in this council from the, I guess, the networks that I'm associated with.
Yeah, I'm happy to move, by the way.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, through the chair. Just in the report where we talk about the fast track legislation, paragraph 3.3, it refers to the 2 projects in Tasman that are on the fast track list. Just in particular relating to the Mapua one, I've just gone on to the fast track website actually to see if I can get my own answer. And I see that, you know, they got a timeline there and it shows that it's listed. So we know that it's there in the legislation. Do we have any other information about where it's currently at? So the round circle that would be highlighted if they had applied is not highlighted. So is anything happening?
Through the chair, I don't have any particular insight about that project, and we have been, you know, sort of referred to the website that's now being created as the main source of intel. But I'm just wondering whether any of my staff know anything more that could help towards that answer. And I'm like looking particularly at Leif. Any news on the Mapua proposal?
We've had no discussions at all from the fast track, and we'd be expecting to see some information from them before we go any further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maru and then Councillor Dakey and Dowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just picking up on your information about the court case, I just wanted to sort of get some clarity from what I remember. So the case wasn't necessarily saying that council didn't do anything wrong in the inspection. It was limiting the liability that council was responsible if something was done wrong. Was that my half recollection of?
Through the chair, the appeal that was with the Supreme Court was around the duty of care aspect. But I would invite Leith to add anything more to describing what was in play.
Through the chair, that's broadly correct. The Court of Appeal focused on whether there was a duty of care for councils to avoid economic loss to pool owners, and found very clearly that there was not. The duty is in relation to the safety of children. That is not, yeah. So that's what the Court of Appeal found in that case.
Thank you. So just through the chair, so I think that's what I understood in terms of not necessarily saying we did everything right, but in terms of the limitation of costs and things down the track of it was a fair outcome, I believe. But my other question, what was my first question, ROSC, I just keep looking at the structure and can't work out how the heck does the person report through the operations committee to the ROSC JC, or does it report to the manager of the emergency management, who then might report to both the CDEM and the ROSC? I'd hate to be that person. So the bit about this is the good news is another position that we're sharing regionally with Nelson City Council. Just the structure and that flowchart just sends me in a tailspin. How does it work, Kim?
Through the chair, early days, Councillor Murray. It's quite novel what we've done, because we had the opportunity for a staff member who was already employed, but it's in the civil defence side, to take the additional responsibility that she was fully qualified for, which was a regional on-scene commander, and look to provide those coordinating functions that are required of a region, so that we weren't doing something that then Nelson was turning around having to replicate in their own systems. And so what we've got here is the early stages of an arrangement whereby we've got a coordination role inside that joined up arrangement. And we've still got, in Nelson's case, they have got their own regional on-scene commander. And in Tasman's case, we're still relying on that person to be our ROSC, but we're training up our harbour master to be able to take up that function. So in time, we will have a more, disciplined system where our harbour master can be a ROSC for Nelson, Nelson's harbour master can be a ROSC for Tasman, so that in the times when there's situations at sea, the respective harbour masters can be harbour masters and their colleague can be the ROSC. So that's the way the partnership will come together. But because we need to grow the capability and the qualifications to fulfill those roles, it's early days. So this is somewhat of a trial, but one that's being embraced by all the parties. And we've got a little bit of a different structure in there, so that my equivalent at Nelson has oversight of how this is all taking shape. But we also have Rob here, who's got civil defence responsibilities. So Rob and I are tagging the way this works to make sure that it works in the best interest of Tasman.
Thanks, Kevin. Through the chair, I think I've just had one of those light bulb moments.
Yeah.
The operations committee is the committee on the right, not the operations committee of Tasman District Council. I saw that as Christine's committee, and then this other committee's thing to the side. The light bulb's just gone on.
Councillor Dakey.
Thank you, through the chair. Issues under investigation 8.2. We had a raw sewage discharge into the Waimea estuary again, sadly. This seems too often. In this case, it involves council operations at a pump station. As a regulatory response, our response will be equivalent to, just for the public, our response investigation will be as thorough as if it was a public group.
Through the chair, that's an absolute undertaking on our behalf. I don't know whether Shane wants to add anything, but there's obviously, when there's an active investigation, that's pretty limited what else we can add to that.
Yes, the only thing I'll add is from a governance perspective and for the public, I would like to see when it's resolved, when the investigation is complete, I'd like to see thoroughly documented in there what the result was, and some sort of statement around it being the result being equivalent. So that is being a fair result, that it has been thoroughly investigated. Just because sometimes I think the public think, oh, well, it's us, so we're a bit lighter. But in actual fact, my preference would be we are harder. We should be setting the bar. And I understand as in regulation, you have to be fair across the board, but I'd rather we were harder on us. But yeah, so thank you for that comment. And yeah, the public will be happy to know that this is getting investigated because this happens too often. Thank you.
Councillor Dowler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kim, item 8.6 to do with the MPI new fees coming in this year and going up annually for 3 years. Will council be advising all the business owners somehow that this is going to smack them as it's going to smack them? Because I can see what's going to happen in July. Council's going to get the blame for the whole damn lot when we're only doing what we do. So I just wonder, can we be proactive and somehow start banging it in Newsline or something like that where people might read it and have an understanding that it's actually not council, it's a government charge that we're just passing on.
Through the chair, I'd invite Shane to pop up and speak to this one. It's something that's happening within his team.
Through the chair, yes, Councillor, we are looking at doing a communication blitz on that. Part of the process, or the majority of the process, is owned by MPI, but we will take steps to ensure our community is advised of the increase.
Thanks. Anything further? The resolution has been moved by Councillor Butler. Is somebody happy to second?
Happy to second.
By Councillor Maru. Thank you. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate again the outline of all this various reforms that we're undergoing. Matt, Building Assurance Managers report, welcome.
Morning. Through you, Madam Chair. I'll take my report as read, but I'll just give you a quick summary. Just going through our building consent applications, we are pretty much on track to what we'd forecast, which is similar numbers to last year, which is sort of a good result. And we've got, with the official cash rate down in the last month, that's likely to push volumes up over the next, I'd say won't be until into the 25-26 year. So we're just sort of waiting for things to pick up a little bit there, but we do have a contractor resource to cover those when things do pick up. Our service delivery is still maintained at 99%. We're continuing with inspections for swimming pools. They're obviously ongoing. They'll be ongoing forever. There's still a few issues around those, but working through those. There's a lot going on with the government with the BCA reforms. Not a lot in the way of updates on that at the moment. They're likely to, well, they're supposed to have a bit more information this quarter. Well, actually, I think they were supposed to be come out with some discussion document for this first quarter of this year, but we're nearly over there. So I think it's likely to be in the next few months, but there's just nothing coming through at the moment. So I understand they are pretty busy with MB working with the minister at the moment to to get this thing ironed out. I think they are struggling a little bit with all the work that they've sort of thrown at them in the short amount of time they've got to do it. The granny flats, there was talk about that. A discussion document for that's probably not going to be until first part of 2026. So yeah, there's a lot going on with the government. there's a few things going on there with the earthquake-prone buildings. There's been there's a review going on at the moment, so they've been so we're able to extend some of the deadlines out a bit for another 4 years, and there's a few things going on. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Matt. Councillor Kinnemont.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Matt, for your report. Staffing and recruiting 3.1. You talk about sufficient contractor resource to provide cover.
Yeah.
Can you give me a bit of a heads up of how the system works? And is a contractor another local council, or how does the system work? Just briefly.
So basically, at this stage, we're using the sort of independent contractors. We are looking at working with other councils, with Nelson and Christchurch. Just sort of looking at a few contracts at the moment with them, but it's trying to find someone that's competent and the availability to do the type of work that we have got coming through the door. Yep.
That was my concern. A building technical officer would be a technical type role.
Yes.
It's not just someone who could work from home, who needs the qualifications and experience.
Yes.
And probably local knowledge as well. And I was wondering who the contractor was or how it worked. So, going forward, do you think you've got enough resources if you lose another person? Or
contract wise, yes, but if we got someone in house, there is over the past 4 years, we've really struggled to find anyone that has a competency or any experience. They generally come off straight off either a designer or a builder. Actually, a couple we just had, one we had straight out of college. So we put them through that training regime, and it just takes a good 2 years before they're actually competent. So it's a real tough situation to be in. There's no sort of pathway from school into this area, and with the BCA reforms going on, we could all be contractors by then. I'm unsure, but yeah, it's a tough one just to find those competent people. But there's plenty of contractors out there.
Thank you.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. Thank you for the report, Matt. I was contacted by a resident who had been obviously getting a building consent, and talking to them, actually, I learned quite a bit about the system and how it works, and they particularly said how great it was dealing with you. So congratulations on that. I learned quite a bit about, the computer system that we've got, and all that sounded really good because everything's logged and timed and flows through into cost. The one thing I just wanted to check with you, I know when we've set fees and charges for some areas of our work, we have differentiated between the different I don't know, let's just call it seniority of roles, and so there are different charge out rates. And I wasn't sure whether we had applied that within the building consent area or not.
Yes, sorry. It's through you, Madam Chair. They are worked out through those. So if you've got say cookie cutter, so an R1, R2, or residential 1, residential 2 type building, the competency level is slightly lower, so that takes into account that charge out rate, and it's worked out over on an average over the consents over that 12-month period. So it works out it works out reasonable, but it's when after the first RFI, then we charge more. But we start charging time after that first request for further information. But then when it gets into the commercial space, it's a higher competency, so that's where that extra charge out rate is. But it is worked out on a hourly time charge, or it's time tracked at that point. So it's really all the fixed consent fees are within the more straightforward type work.
Okay, if I may, just to make sure I fully understand it. So if, for example, it was a residential dwelling, are you saying that is a category and a charge out rate applies? So every one of our staff who would be doing anything connected to that, their charge out rate is at the same level? Or does the charge out rate differ whether our most experienced BCA person or our least experienced BCA person is?
No, it'll be charged out at the same rate throughout that. But if we got someone in, for like say, I don't know, like a commercial person in to help out, or go through or supervise or whatever, that won't get charged anyway. But if there is someone more experienced, it will still get charged at that lower rate of the inexperienced.
Thank you.
Councillor Dowler, then Councillor Shellcrest.
Section 7, so the report on page 57, which is the dam safety regulations. It's just me reading that. It says immediate approach, the last bit, 7(3), is to be taken as there are significant initial and ongoing costs imposed on owners of classifiable dams, so much so that some owners are giving serious consideration to decommissioning and removal. That concerns me quite a lot, because water's the new gold. We've just spent $200 and something million on a pond to supply the people around this area. I certainly hope we're not, just because of a few dollars in the bank, going to start creating issues where people are going to start decommissioning and losing their source of supply, maybe. Just a comment.
Yeah.
Just very concerning, seeing that we're basically becoming a water short region.
So through the chair on that one. So, I think what you're saying, councillor, is that we've got a lot of on-farm storage, for instance, for a lot of the product that we've got throughout or produce that we're producing throughout the region. And the fact is that the regulatory system is now putting a lot of onus back on the owners of those dams. And some folk are perhaps not being used to those obligations sitting with them. And the new framework makes it quite clear that they do. And that is where the choice that people are making is saying, really, do I want this dam? But I think it's not so much on those who are productively using the dam, it's those who have managed to, recreate that dam as an amenity value for their farm or for their lifestyle. And those folk are really struggling to continue to meet their obligations around something which is not necessarily producing for them. So that's where, at the moment, it's my understanding where the pain's being felt. That's where there isn't a commercial use of the dam.
Well, I just didn't pick that up in the report.
Yeah, no, it's only touched on there, but that's the sort of the sense that we're getting. It's not to say that, with a regulatory costs across the board, operators will be feeling the pinch in a number of places. So it could be the straw breaks the camel's back in some situations, but that's not what we're seeing. I think is that a fair comment to you, Matt?
Yes, yeah, that is, yeah.
Councillor Shellcrest.
Yeah, through the chair. Thanks, Matt. Just obviously up in the trade still a wee bit, still some genuine frustration in certain areas of, consenting and things like that. Is there any appetite in the department for actually sort of shoulder tapping some of these builders doing different things outside the box and actually utilising some of their information? I mean, some of them seem to have some really good ideas, and it's easy to say, oh, let's just do this, do that. But I see some really genuine opportunities in that space, and I don't know whether that's something that you actively do, or there's budget, or is any sort of incentive for that?
Through you, Madam Chair. So when you say good ideas, are the good ideas around products or design, or?
I think a bit of both, and even just around the process of how things get done. Because I think a lot of it is the timelines, and a lot of these people that I'm dealing with, it really affects their business with obviously not having things done in certain times. I get there's always two sides to the story, but I wonder how you potentially can get some of those ideas out of those as people that are actually on the ground doing the work.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Yes, no, we engage a lot with the industry, and we welcome any ideas that could make things go quicker. We have been educating them around doing minor variations, just getting those through quicker. As far as the building consent process goes, it is a sort of a process that we forever. We're always reviewing it, making sure that we can show any efficiencies that we can. But no, happy to talk to anyone out there that's got a good idea.
Yeah, just there's lots of different ways. These almost tiny homes or grannies, those style places seem to be becoming more popular. So that's cool. No,
well, they are looking at doing more exempt type work under that government scheme. So that should make a difference. And there's quite a few things you can do without a consent now. So yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm not quite sure if it's a question for you or for Kim, but I'm just curious about the comment you made regarding the government and granny flats, and that there might be discussion paper in 2026. Now, my impression is that we were going to be seeing something earlier, and it was going to help us with the issue of tiny homes and things like that. So I'm just curious as to where does that leave us, that time frame's come out yet again. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for some kind of solution. So what is it? Chose not to put it into the plan change. So what is the solution? How are we going to deal with this issue as we're waiting yet again?
So through the chair, I'll take that question first, because the granny flat required quite a nuancing of legislation, not only the Building Act, but also the Resource Management Act. And the idea was that was going to be fused. So there was a sort of a straight up process, and you didn't have to worry about which act you needed to comply with and what a definition was in this act versus that act. So that's been the intent. And it was a discussion paper basically released by the department saying, the ministers are quite keen on some of the stuff being better integrated, and the discussion paper was around that. And so the MB who run that process were absolutely snowed under by the amount of submissions they got back on it. So as I understand it, it's orders of magnitude, probably not orders of magnitude, but several times bigger than any other discussion or consultation they've driven before. So they've got thousands of submissions to work through, and a lot of those submissions are quite considered, such as our council's one. It wasn't just a short one, it was actually quite a considered submission. And so they are indicating that it's taken them time to work that through. So hence, with all of the other government priorities, they've pushed that out to being this is a 2026 thing, not likely to be a 2025 thing, relative to all the other priorities that the government's dealing with. So in that context, we have to fall back on the framework that we're operating under, which involves at the moment the Building Act side and the Resource Management Act side being driven by, on the Building Act, it's national direction, and on the Resource Management Act, it's locally determined. That's essentially what we've been challenged with, trying to fuse together. And I think that's the reality for us for the remainder of the year. We've got to make the current system work. There was media coverage today of another situation, I think it's in the Huranui or in North Canterbury, where, another one of these issues has hit town, and, there's quite a dispute going around the council's approach to matters under the Building Act as that currently sits. So, I think councils around the country are challenged with people wanting to do something that currently the regulatory system doesn't really provide for. And it's going to take some time before government makes up its mind as to what does need adjusting. And in the meantime, we've got to live with the status quo and work within it. That's the task that we've got in front of us.
Thank you. I'm sure it's intensely frustrating for everybody in the whole issue. So thank you for your explanation.
You happy to move? Councillor Shellcrest.
Yeah, I was going to move for a second.
Great. Anything further? I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thanks, Matt, for your report and your team's work. Thank you. Katrina, Resource Consents Manager's report. Katrina's on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you, through the Madam Chair. I'll take my report as read. However, I wouldn't mind summarising a few points in it. So over the last 6 months, we've had across the board actually an increase in workload across resource consent applications received and decisions made. We've also had an increase in LGWMAs, service requests, hearings and notified. So it's been a pretty busy 6 months for the team. As a result, we have slightly increased our statutory timeframes to be improved, but as a result of that, across all the the applications being received, there's a slight increase in the discount penalties. We've had 2 resignations in the team, one being a senior. So it's just overall, it's still continuing to be a struggle to recruit qualified planners. We're trying to manage these the best we can through contracts and contractors. However, we don't have the dedicated resource to manage them. These are through our team leaders. So working through that, and then one thing that's been a positive that we've made some good progress through process improvements is in the contributors portal, which is going to be a great asset as far as the internal process for contributing comments to a resource consent, and we're in testing phase for that at the moment. So I suppose that's just a brief summary of some key things in the report, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Mayling.
No, not so much a question, but a thank you. I've been to see Katrina a couple of times with some of your more difficult consents, and she's been very, very helpful. And it's pleasing to see the progress that has been made over the time, but I do acknowledge the difficulty in this particular area, and it seems to be that certain consents are getting more complicated. So all I can say is you're doing a very good job in a difficult position, and you can see the improvement, and the assistance that I've been able to get with some difficult consents for Katrina has been very good. And in some places, we're actually being bad-mouthed by somebody when they hadn't actually lodged the consent, the final consent. And the delay was in the planner, not with our staff. So that just is an illustration of what's going on.
Thank you. Councillor Kinnemont and then Councillor Dowler.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Katrina, I sent you a little email yesterday about your staffing issues. I was wondering if you've looked at other councils' workloads around New Zealand, that you could maybe purloin some of them or put an SOS out and say help. Have you tried that as a source of work?
We did that during COVID period. We didn't, and as a result, need them in the end. But I do have a few contacts that I keep in the loop with. But I understand that other councils also are struggling to find and recruit staff in the area as well. I did get emails, thanks, Mike, but I was on leave yesterday, so I hadn't got to reply. But yeah, I'm happy to reach out a bit further with that. And see if there's any other opportunities wider in the teams. Yeah, working through where the best place area is. We do have a pretty complicated TRMP. I think that's not necessarily helping at times. But also we're looking at doing some targeted marketing as well with a recruitment agency, which I think will be beneficial, and working with the people and wellbeing team with that as well.
A delicate area, really, isn't it? Poaching. We haven't liked being poached.
Yeah, got to be a little bit careful.
And I think Tim was just saying to me that some of our last 3 recruits maybe have come from other councils. Anyway, it's a funny business, isn't it? Who would have thought there's been nobody going around the schools in the last 5 years? Maybe they are now saying, you really want to be a planner, just name your price. But it's, I guess it's still ongoing that just a general shortage throughout the country of planners. I don't know if there's any turn with that or not.
Yeah. Well, through Madam Chair, one thing we keep on managing through our team is we've got a graduate level, a planner, and then a senior. So we at one point we did take on 6 graduates, and that's great. And we saw them, we built them through to 2 or 3 years, and we've got to realise that come 2 or 3 years that they may want to leave the nest and jump overseas, and that's kind of what does happen. That's great, and they've enjoyed their time here. We're very conscious taking on graduates that I think only 1 graduate per team is probably viable, especially when you haven't got seniors in those teams, because if you haven't got the seniors to develop and build, it puts a huge amount of pressure on the team leaders. So we're just very conscious that in our 3 areas that we work in, that we manage what graduates come in. So there's a possibility to take on 1 graduate in one of the teams, so we'll look out for that. But the land use team really does need a senior to support the complicated world that we're working in at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Kinnamon.
Yeah, I just want to wrap up my comments and say that, Katrina, appreciate your openness to alternative options, and please keep up the great work. I'm very impressed.
Councillor Dowler and Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Madam Chair. 2 things. First of all, table 7 hearings to be booked. I think I asked a question about a year ago about this one, which is the application by Ruru Building Limited. I see in the wording it said it was notified on April 23. Submission closed in May 24. A total of 208 submissions were received. 55 wanted to be heard. So is there a date that we can put a line in the sand whether a decision has to be made by the company whether they're going to go ahead or not? Because I know one of the submitters has passed away. So, like it's not a good thing. That I know we possibly can't do anything about it legally. That's the first question.
Yep, if you want to answer, I can answer that if you like. Through Madam Chair, so that that consent has been sitting on hold, so ultimately it's waiting for the applicant to either continue progressing or withdraw it. We are going to notify very soon those people as to that it's still on hold, because I can understand those people are sitting there thinking what's going on with this, so we will give them some communication. So we've been recently talking about that to at least let them know, but there's no obligation under the Act that they have to. It could sit on hold for a very long time. There's no obligation for them to actually withdraw it or make some progress to the next steps.
Thank you. Just number 2, it's not really a question, it's just in a previous life I used to manage a company down the coast, and it was a New Zealand wide company. We used to take on apprentices, and part of the deal was, this is back in the early 90s, we would set them up so that they were ready to hit the ground running. Back in those days, we'd provide a $5,000 toolbox so they could have the gear at their fingertips that they needed. They would do their apprenticeship, and we would lock them in for 5 years after their completion of apprenticeship, so that they were repaying some of the goodwill that we put towards them. We used to have to fly them away to their training, etc., in Christchurch for a week or whatever, and all that was covered by the company, and that was how we basically covered our costs, was having them there for 5 years after, so that we'd get something back. I don't know whether that can work under the modern system these days of employment contracts and stuff, but that's what we used to do, and it used to work quite well. We used to set them up for sale. As soon as that 5 years was up, they'd normally pack up and go to Caterpillar in Australia and get paid twice as much, probably for doing half the amount of work. But at least we had them for 5 years, and we had them coming through. If we had one apprentice out of the apprenticeship, we'd bang another one in. I had 3 apprentices on the go at all times, the period of time I was there. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy to move?
Sorry, I'm happy to
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Thanks for the report. Just a question of clarification, because I don't, for number 8, coastal permits for marine farms, I don't understand the difference between a coastal permit and a resource consent. Do the marine farms have both, or is the coastal permit interchangeable with the resource consent, or how does that work?
As far as I understand, a coastal permit is a resource consent, but if Leif Piggott's there and wants to add anything further, he can as well.
Right. So they're actually interchangeable, really, as expressions. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much.
It was a thumbs up from Leith that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have heard, Katrina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool, thanks.
Are you happy to second, councillor? Anything further? I'll put the resolution to receive the report. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thanks very much, Katrina, to you and your team for keep on going, really. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, and our last report for the morning, Rivers and Coastal Structures report. David's unwell, I believe, and Rob, you're gonna be on the tiller.
Kia ora tātou, rangatira mā. Yeah, Nami from David, who is under the weather at the moment. He did want to report from his bed, but he's having lots of coughing fits, so we didn't think it was appropriate. If it's okay, I'll take the report as read. I hopefully you saw on Friday in the Tasman update some pictures of the Motueka Stock Bank. That's there was a slight delay to start with, but they're making great progress and will be everything will be done as per our plan by the time that comes is finished. So that's really good work. And the team you'll see in the discussion about gravel, that's going quite well as well. So probably the issues around gravel, so we have a big period in the middle of the summer where there's nesting birds, which tends to delay things, which is appropriate. And then we're also at the moment, of course, economic downturn flows through. There's not as much gravel needed. There's not as much concrete being poured. So we expect that to start picking up again soon. And you'll see there's plenty anticipated the rest of this year. And Upper Motueka is where we're really trying to get people to focus.
Thanks, Rob. Deputy Mayor Brian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did send a little bit note through to yourself and Rob and David, just around some question I'm going to ask. But just firstly, Rob, thanks for, and pass on our thanks to David for the report. So firstly, really pleased to see the gravel extraction limits, and particularly the one at Pigeon Valley Bridge, which the Wakefield Community Council and Councillor Mackenzie and myself have been advocating for some time. So I'm assuming that work will be relatively soon to get that gravel out of there, because the
Yeah, through the chair. So that is, yes, that's planned. That's if you look on the table, that's the 2,500 cube under the Waiti River. I had to ask myself this morning, I wasn't sure where it was.
yes, so yeah, well, the pictures are pretty much below the chart, isn't it, of Pigeon Valley Bridge? So yeah, no, we've actually driven down onto that area a couple of times, and it's really good that it's we're doing that in conjunction with the Alliance, because I think Drew was there when we were down there and thought, well, he could use that resource, so it's a double win in some ways.
And through the chair, just to confirm, so we're not doing a special deal with them, so they still pay the fee for the gravel. Part of that land is on private land, so you get a reduced take for that because that's not our land. So like any other extractor, they pay the same rate.
And then if I could just congratulate the Rivers team on the work they're doing generally, that's covered really well in the reporting. Good to see that gravel being allowed to be extracted and encouraged in the Upper Motueka by keeping the fee relatively stable. So I think that'll be benefit all round for the community. But I particularly wanted to talk about the report on for the Murchison, I'll just find it, river management area is what we're calling it. So really appreciate that we've got that report done. And that that was made available for the Murchison Community Council meeting last month. And admittedly, I was they didn't have a lot of time, and we have had some feedback from them. And by and large, they were pleased that we've got the report done, and particularly focused on the area that was asked to do that. What they weren't so pleased about, there did seem to be some, or that they only did one visit and didn't actually engage with any local landowners or local residents that had been there for some time. And of course, you know how passionate people currently are about showing where flood damage has been or what could happen. And you have to have some real sympathy for people like one of the landowners in that area currently selling their property. And of course, anyone comes to look at it and there's a great big hole where the water's washing away. It makes it very difficult to move a property on when you're faced with that. So what I do wonder is, as part of this process, and I was going to talk to David about this, if there's an opportunity for some engagement around this report with the merchants and community, whether that be through the community council or just through some sort of organised meeting or public meeting, so that they have a bit of an opportunity to discuss this. Because I do see the recommendation that look at it for the next long-term plan, but to me, and in some ways, that's a little bit of a fob off, because we know that's in the next term. There'll be lots of things happen. The community is aware that they're at somewhat of a risk at this stage. So I just wonder if some thought would be given to having some engagement so that we can see if there is a need for a rating area or something like that.
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, so the next step, the plan step, is for staff to engage with the locals, particularly the adjoining landowners, because if it's not a Rivers Edge job, so Rivers Edge job for us is where the landowner pays most of the money and then the council subsidises normally about a third of it. If it's not a Rivers Edge job, which we would just treat as BAU, then it actually becomes a bigger question. If we were to do a rating district, because the rating districts, essentially all River Wye are covered the same across the district. So it's a bigger question, and we would have to come back to the committee at that point, because we would need to clarify that. So it's not just those immediate landowners pay, everybody in River Wye pays that same rate. And so there would be an impact on the wider region if we started putting more money down into the south there. But part of that discussion is also around, because we're only protecting the land that actually is eroding on the private land. We wouldn't be protecting hydro parcels or crown land out in the river. So there's that little nuance just needs to play out yet. So the next step is for David and his team to talk to the local people. And then we would come back. If it's not just a BAU project, then we'll come back to the committee.
Yeah, because the risk is, if it is BAU Rivers Edge, we have very limited budget for that, and we're dealing with a big river, and we've cut down the council's contribution from what it once was. So their total Rivers Edge budget for work could go in this job alone. So and then that could mean nothing gets done anywhere else in the district. Well, that wouldn't go down well.
Yes, you're correct, and we stick to the budget, so we wouldn't be spending more than we had available. And of course, at the moment, the budget, we've redirected most of our maintenance money towards the Motueka, and that's how we were able to leverage the money out of the government. And you'll notice that our focus this year is much more about that longer term preventative maintenance. We're trying to get away from reactive, so that's why you're seeing all the willow layering and a lot more of the less long rock wall and more the stub groins and implantings. We're just trying to rationalise how we spend that money.
Yeah, thank you. I understand that, but I do think the time's come when we perhaps need to look at an alternative rating system for this community around its river frontage, whether that's those in the front line pay more, and then because there is a cost to the community of that takes out the road or even private property, because the road has been moved back 2 times in the time that I've been on council that I'm aware of, and the cost of that to the community is huge. So yeah, it's something we need to give some serious consideration. So I'm pleased to hear that David's going to engage with the community and the team. Will that include the report authors, or will that just be our team? For you, Madam Chair.
I'd have to clarify with David and get back to you, but I don't really see the need for the authors to be involved when we've got the technical skills in-house. We'd have to pay more, but I would leave that up to David so I can let you know.
That'd be good, because my view, as others from the, is that it was much a desktop exercise and one day, one site visit, which possibly wasn't enough for the local community's input. But what's done is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Mayor King on Zoom. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you very much through the chair. Just a couple of questions, Rob. Sure, David, sorry he's not here because he's got a lot of enthusiasm for this area of work. Look, I'd be remiss not to make a comment about figure 10 in the report, the pallet hut on the Waimea River berm. I mean, unbelievable. You kind of don't know whether to say, ask Matt whether it would get a building consent. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd flabbergasted by it. Anyway, no question there. Pigeon Valley, just following up from Deputy Mayor Bryant, I didn't quite hear the timing. So we've got the Wakefield Community Council meeting next week. Are we able to give them an actual indication as to timing?
It's okay through the chair. What I'll do is I'll find out and I'll let the councillors know the date for that extraction. As far as the pallet hut, that's not the most impressive structure we've had down there. We actually had one with a flat screen TV and lights. So, mind you, I'm a coaster, so we used to build these ourselves.
Thank you. And just with respect to Pigeon Valley, I just want to, I'm sure we're going to be asked this question on Monday. Any chance of a enhancement to the swimming hole?
I think that might be works in the waterway, which would be a different story.
Okay. And then I read all the information, about the poles and the pole nursery, and having visited there and been to the sites where we use it, it's an incredibly important facility. And this year we're giving all our poles to Marlborough because they gave us money to help set it up. My question is, within council, do we actually have a cost centre for the pole nursery, and we fully understand what it costs to operate it, so that actually we do try to recover our costs as much as possible? So do we actually really understand what it costs to run the pole nursery?
Yeah, through the chair, yes. And those poles, I think we charged about $13 a pole to Marlborough and Nelson this year. So we actually cost out the cost of those poles at the production cost. It has been a bit messy the last couple of years because Marlborough actually put quite a bit of money in, which wasn't Marlborough's, it actually came from Ministry of Primary Industries. And that we're trying to do the same via Nelson City at the moment as well to do the enhancements. So there's a little bit of, it doesn't quite fit because that's money we can't allocate, we can't factor into the cost of the production. But generally the plan is to try and make that self-sustaining. We don't want the community to pay for those poles. There is a little bit when it goes to the landowners, that is a cost on ratepayers though, because those poles are free. And that's why we're toying with, should we put a nominal charge on those poles to make sure that landowners actually appreciate the effort that goes to produce them. It's a chicken and egg thing though, isn't it? Because we actually want the poles out there to secure the land. Most popular poles go towards stabilising hillsides and smallest waterways. So we actually want those to go to the landowners. So we have tried to shy away from putting a charge on those. but we tend to manage how they use. So quite often we'll do a site visit and then try and tailor it to the appropriate use.
Yeah, if I could, through the chair, I guess I'd be less concerned about poles that are going in for good purposes within our region. I'm more concerned about poles going outside of the region and our ratepayers effectively subsidising other councils. So that's the bit that I'd be, more focused on.
If I can, through the chair, absolutely, we are not going to subsidise Nelson and Marlborough. I would like to make sure that that's a positive on our side.
Thank you, Councillor Kinnemont, and then Councillor Walker and Councillor Shildcraig.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Illegal dumping in the rivers. We're also getting illegal dumping on the side of the roads. Is there any coordination between yourselves and the roading people about sorting this problem out once and for all? Or is there any sort of communication, like it seems to be 1 month is one river, next month is another river, next month is another river, but I'm also thinking, I know in Motueka Valley, there's a couple of areas here where they do some flyer dumping. So they're just beside the river on the road. But I'm just wondering, as a council, do you know do we coordinate or do we raise the issue up of illegal dumping? Because it seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and maybe with the resource recovery fees going up, there seems to be more and more volume that we've got to deal with. So in your role then, Rob, do you see an issue getting bigger or is it smaller? And is it as a council, sorry, do you talk to Jamie McPherson about his issues as well? So there's several questions wrapped up in a lot of waffling there.
Through the chairs, I don't believe it's the cost of dumping. I think it's slovenly behaviour by individuals who disrespect their environment and disrespect what they're doing and the impact they have on others. You could probably tell from my tone that I have very little tolerance. I think it's disgusting. The reality is the solid waste issue is actually owned by community infrastructure, so that's David Stevenson's space. So this material that they dump on the rivers, while it's an impact on our river management, the actual cost of that then sheets back home to David's space. So the same with the roading. So it is coordinated, and there is quite a bit of work with Kim's team trying to catch these people. And some of the pictures you see are people who have driven a distance to get there and are throwing stuff away. We get a beautiful photo on camera, and they've driven past the dump to get there. So they're spending petrol to get there. It's just it's a state of mind. It's not a cost pressure. So where we can, we absolutely try and pursue recovery of that.
So just one last question. Is the issue getting bigger or smaller in your mind? Like more volume, more time is being called out to remove illegal dumping, or is it getting smaller?
Off the top of my head, I really couldn't answer that. I think it's slightly episodic, and that's probably something better for David Stevenson to comment about in his waste management report. I'll pass that on to David if that's what the committee would like.
I did think the dumping of the engine and the trailer, the engine could have gone to scrap metal, probably could have paid for the dumping of the trailer. Councillor Walker, then Councillor Shildcraig.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge, and it's a shame he's not here, David. David mediated an amazing community meeting, which gave a platform for our community to actually freely come and speak about the challenges they have around River Z, River X, River Y. And we got to hear some very passionate voices. but it takes an art and a craft to mediate a meeting like that. And I just wanted to acknowledge David and the way that he delivered on that. And I'm really keen to hear when we get to have the follow-up meetings from that, because it is a very fine balancing act. And we've heard from Deputy Mayor Bryant today about the needs, wants, and, you know, how can we look at this through a different perspective than what we've done for a very long time, because some of our community are hurting and are concerned for when the next weather event comes. So if you could pass on my acknowledgements to the mana mahi that David is doing and the way he delivers it, it's muchly appreciated on behalf of Motueka.
Thank you, and I will absolutely pass it on. David has been a great find for us, and you'll see by the reduction in negative commentary around river management. Of course, we have to deliver, and we absolutely will be held to account for that delivery. And I know when David and I go back to Tapawera this Christmas, if we haven't delivered, we will certainly be told that we haven't done our job. And then, while it might not be Councillor Bryant's problem anymore, he will know about it.
Councillor Shellcrest.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I was at a similar meeting in Brightwater with David, and it was really, really good. There was some genuine appetite at that meeting for the digging out of these potential swimming holes, and not just Wakefield. There was also Brightwater, and he sort of didn't assure me, but he said it wasn't a definite no. So I'm still keen to try to make that happen. I think it'll be a really good news story. It connects those people that use that to the river. There's a lot more benefits than just a swimming hole. I think it's a real way to get our community connected to the waterways and really respect them. So I really think there's an opportunity there. I'd love Wakefield to be the one that we can go, hey, this is cool. We're trying this. I know it's coming to the end of summer, but I just think I'd be keen to be involved in that and make it a good news story, as Councillor McKenzie would say.
Are you happy to move the resolution?
Yeah, I'd like to move it too.
We've got a seconder. Councillor Mailing. Anything further? I can add that David was also excellent in Collingwood. He's doing a great job, isn't he? I also quite like that he's, you know, when things got a bit rough in a moment, not at Collingwood, but said, look, I don't, you know, we cannot do this. And I just liked his tone around. He's a very friendly guy and very helpful, but also has a firmness when some of those river meetings have been pretty rough in the past, and appreciate how he's managing himself there, actually. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Rob. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. And Kim, just a last few words from you before we close the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Just reiterate, this is the first meeting of the year, and it is the Environment and Regulatory Committee. So you've heard a mixture of, I guess, more strategic, higher level stuff. What's the government thinking? What is our thoughts around that, down to the grounded discussion of what's actually going on? And I think, you know, a lot of the engagement that we've had today, it means that both of those things are important to you. So as a group manager who assists the chair with pulling this together, I'm always open to your feedback as to what emphasis you would like to see come through the committee. But in a big part, we are dealing here with a lot of the regional aspects, and it has been questioned in recent times, you know, are we doing enough to deliver up against our regional role? And that's always a hard, assessment to make. And again, I appreciate feedback on your thoughts on that. As a rough rule of thumb, the numbers of staff that fit into a regional council, certainly harking back to my Environment Canterbury days when we sort of did this head count across the country, back then it was about one staff member for every 1,000 people in the community that a regional council would cover. That number has crept up, probably now the multiplier has crept up to around about 1.5. So in essence, this council, if it was a regional council only, would have about 90 staff dedicated to that cause. Because we're a unitary council, of course, we don't need to do a cost plus, we actually integrate. And I think the strength of what we've here today is a lot of the integration. So it's not just about a regional function or a territorial function. What we're trying to do is talk to an integrated approach. And I think that's why we're getting comments back from some of our central government politicians that the word that this council puts together and sends through to Wellington around things is a very considered and respected message. And I think that's the strength of what this council offers as a unitary. But you just want to, leave you with the fact that if you feel that we've got an emphasis one way or another, I'm always happy to engage with you, take that feedback, and then I can discuss that with the chair as to whether we might, change the emphasis. But I certainly feel that today you've engaged at both ends, the strategic end as well as the grounded end, and I think that's that's an indictment of what we're trying to bring through here.
Thank you, Kim. Nothing further. I'm going to close with karakia. Thank you for all your contributions today. Karakia tātou. Kia hora te marino. Kia whakapapa paunamu te moana. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou katoa. Thank you, everybody.